Now on LWT, all the best moments from the Nürburgring.
Formula One's European Tour moves to Germany and the historic Nürburgring. We've had all kinds of conditions this weekend. It's been cold, wet and windy. We've had a drop of sunshine as well. The weather, unpredictable as ever. Hello there, welcome to the highlights of this afternoon's European Grand Prix. This race tends to be totally unpredictable. Do you remember Johnny Herbert's victory here for Stewart last year? The weather, though, around this place is always a big factor. But before the rain came in qualifying, we saw the customary Ferrari-McLaren battle for pole. It's all a question of timing, and David Coulthard gets it just right. There's a sweet spot between the dry and the wet, round about halfway through the session, and he finds it. Michael Schumacher just has no answer.
And is Michael Schumacher going to do it yet again? No!
Mika Häkkinen's never happy with his McLaren. He starts from the second row for only the second time this season. Another impressive performance, though, from Ralf Schumacher. His Williams fifth, while teammate Jenson Button qualifies down in 11th. Then the rain disrupts the session until the hour's almost over, when everyone makes one last run on a drying track. Few improve, though, and Michael Schumacher's best efforts are in vain.
That's it, he's ruined it.
And so the grid. David Coulthard's first pole of the season. Home hero Michael Schumacher breathing down his neck. Häkkinen ahead of Barrichello on the second row. Ralf Schumacher fifth alongside Trulli, who finished second here last year. Fisichella seventh. A good performance from Irvine, his Jaguar eighth. Row 5, Villeneuve ahead of last year's pole sitter Frentzen. Button's Williams 11th ahead of De La Rosa. Nick Heidfeld was excluded from 13th because his Prost was underweight, so the rest of the grid shuffles forward. Verstappen taking his place. Wirtz joins him on row 7. Row 8, Deniz, another disappointment though for Herbert in the Jaguar. Alesi's Prost 17th, Zonta 18th, Salo Sauber 19th, and the Minardis in their usual positions down the back. It's the European Grand Prix then, with Martin Brundle and Murray Walker.
Watch the lights then when they're all on, they'll go out, there'll be a pause, and the race will be go! Good one by David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen. Streaks between the two of them. Is that what they were talking about? Is that what they were talking about? And Rubens Barrichello challenging. So Michael Schumacher in second position between the two McLarens, and then Barrichello off goes one of the Jordans, and somebody is trailing along at the back. It is Marc Genet in the Minardi, who's had a very late start. But unlike last year when Pedro Diniz went off, and that is Trulli, Jarno Trulli, who was starting about in 8th position, and it looks as though he's out of the race already. So it's McLaren Ferrari, and then behind you can see them as we ride with Heinz Harald Frentzen now, and they're climbing up out of the Dunlop curve up towards the left and right at turns 8 and 9, up to the big curve, the sweeping right-hander, that is turn 10, and now then the Vidal chicane. So they're pretty well spread out as they come towards us now, with Mika Häkkinen leading Schumacher, with David Coulthard down from first on the grid to third in the race. Rubens Barrichello started fourth. He is still in fourth position, but in fifth position it is Jacques Villeneuve. Remember what I told you? He has already gained 4 places, a magnificent start.
Yes, great start from Villeneuve. The car that rocketed away was Mika Häkkinen. I was watching them. They're right outside our window for the start, and Coulthard got away well. Michael Schumacher not so well, but then Coulthard lost a bit of ground on the upshift to second. Hakkinen just catapulted through. Here's a replay at the start. There's the wheel spin. I can see black lines outside my window off the grid. Here we go now. And Hakkinen just got the absolutely perfect start from third on the grid. The others are away reasonably well. Look, and just rockets through the middle. We've heard that Frentzen has blown up somewhere around the racetrack as we're watching this replay. And look at that, the perfect getaway from Hakkinen. How he and Michael Schumacher didn't touch, I'll never know. And then Coulthard having to defend what became first down to third from Barrichello.
Well, let's repeat the fact as you watch the Sauber of Pedro Diniz go off the track. And here is Frentzen retiring, and his teammate Jarno Trulli is already out of the race. Well, you can see what the problem is there. His Mugen Honda engine has obviously had enough already. So both Jordans are out of the race as Frentzen waves to his countryman, and Hakkinen comes towards us. Schumacher second, Coulthard third, and look at the way that Michael Schumacher is pushing the McLaren in front of him. And I remind you, Michael Schumacher is on the harder tyre. Mika Hakkinen's got a beautiful balance on the softer Bridgestone, and he's definitely got the advantage at the present moment. Fisichella in the blue Benetton is attacking Jacques Villeneuve. That's what you're looking at now, fighting for fifth position. And behind them, look at the orange arrows of Pedro de la Rosa. He's in seventh position ahead of Ralf Schumacher. The arrows are going magnificently here. We're riding with Barrichello now. He's in fourth position in the Ferrari, and he's 1.5 seconds behind David Coulthard's McLaren, which is the car that you can see ahead of us. And Rubens just does not seem to have been able to get the balance right on the Ferrari.
Michael's got a real run on Hakkinen. Hakkinen's going to have to defend his line, otherwise Schumacher's going to outbrake him. Well, you made that too easy there, Mike.
Yes!
You had to defend that. 400 metres, 400 metres earlier. Too easy for Michael Schumacher. No good having a look now.
Well spotted, Martin. Beautiful, beautiful drive by Michael Schumacher, who has to make... Hakkinen gives way. The Ferrari mechanics wave in delight. So now it is Ferrari, McLaren, McLaren, Ferrari, and that yellow and red flag is to indicate that the circuit is getting wet. They'll know that. They'll see these raindrops coming towards them and bouncing on their visors. And now, remember, Michael Schumacher is the absolute rain master of Formula One. One of the greatest drives I've ever seen as we see this replay of Michael Schumacher diving up the inside of Mika Hakkinen, who has to stay out. Tuck in behind the Ferrari as they come into the chicane.
Now this is Barrichello behind Coulthard. Does he have a go up the inside into turn one? This is a replay, but I don't know the outcome. I'm assuming Coulthard on the better line into the corner. No, Barrichello's gone through. Where's Coulthard? We're not showing Barrichello in third place on the computer at the moment. He'll have to go through the next section, so maybe it's Ferrari 1 and 3, McLaren 2 and 4 now.
Well, let's have a look.
It
is, because Barrichello has passed David Coulthard, and that is a confirmation of the fact that in these weather conditions, the Ferraris have got the better handling.
Off goes the Minardi.
Genet and Johnny Herbert, you'll notice, last year's winner, this year in the Jaguar, has come in for a very early stop. Michael Schumacher leads on lap 14 out of 67, 53 laps to go.
Well, Schumi stayed on the racetrack. I mean, I can't see where the weather's coming from, but Schumi's decided to stay. I mean, he's barely on the throttle as he comes over the line. Let's see his lap time. It's a 41. That's 19 seconds slower. It takes you 30 seconds to make a pit stop. Okay, you've got to do another 30 seconds to come in and change the tyres again. And what was going on there, Murray?
No, Ralf Schumacher doing the same as his brother as Pedro Diniz spins off. This is what the rain is doing. In comes David Coulthard from fourth position. But Ralf Schumacher's doing like his brother. He's driving magnificently in the wet. He's gone ahead of Jacques Villeneuve up into sixth position. David Coulthard goes out in about 7.4 seconds. And of course, he's got a new set of tyres on lap 15.
We know the Ferrari mechanics are out in the pit lane too. I think they'll have to respond to... yes, and that is Michael in the pit lane. Coming through what is a very slow last corner. and then over the white line at just 80 kilometers per hour. He's got to hit the button, and there are his team. He's got to hope he doesn't run over them as he did in Spain, but that was not his fault in the Catalonia Grand Prix, and I don't know if James is there.
And behind him is Mika Häkkinen. So they come in first and second. Häkkinen stops. There he is in the background. There is Fisichella coming in. So all the leaders are coming in now. And you watch Schumacher exit after 12.1 seconds. That's a very long stop. How does Mika Häkkinen's time compare?
Problem for Häkkinen's car, Murray. Long time putting the right rear on. So Häkkinen quite slow away. Now something's coming. He'll beat that out of the pit lane. So I think he lost just a few seconds there while they had a slight drama. And look, Coulthard is right up there with Michael Schumacher.
Coulthard, who has stopped. Michael Schumacher has stopped. Schumacher is now just ahead of David Coulthard as they come up behind Jenson Button. Jenson Button in the Williams.
Now, Michael's on his out lap. He doesn't know how much grip there is. Coulthard's now on his first flying lap, and that's why Michael's having to defend quite aggressively there with David Coulthard, whose tyres are that bit warmer, and he's got more knowledge of the racetrack.
So, lap 16, here is the order at the present moment as you watch Schumacher and Coulthard and Jenson Button keeping his Williams in between them. He's led Schumacher through. He's refusing to be passed by David Coulthard. This is costing Coulthard dear in the McLaren as Jenson Button fights for position and to avoid being lapped, which he has now been. And look at this, a terrific scrap between Pedro de la Rosa in the Arrows, Fisichella behind him, then Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar, but Fisichella's closing right up on de la Rosa. He's going to try and get through the Arrows on the inside here. De la Rosa will have to move over and let him through. Is it going to happen?
Now De La Rosa running wide, Fisichella getting a look up the inside, but can he make it stick? It's De La Rosa that's got the inside for the next left-hander, but De La Rosa yields a little bit too early, and around the outside goes Fisichella and on his way.
A fantastic battle for fourth place between Pedro de la Rosa in the Arrows and Fisichella in the Benetton, and Eddie Irvine is in sixth position for Jaguar. In the points for Jaguar, Jos Verstappen Arrows, 7th, Barrichello Ferrari down in 8th position. This is fantastic motor racing. 6th on the right, Eddie Irvine Jaguar, Jos Verstappen 7th, Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari 8th. James Allen, what's the news?
Sensational atmosphere down here in the pit lane today, Murray. Just looking at the pit stops, Coulthard stopped for 7.4 seconds. That's not a lot of fuel to go on board, but I think he had quite a bit at the start. Now Schumacher stopped for 12 seconds. That's enough fuel for 35 laps, but he had very little fuel at the start, so they're roughly on the same sort of fuel load at the moment. Häkkinen's problem was getting the wheel nut back onto the right rear tyre. It's cost him dear, about 4 seconds, but on a day like today with such strange and changeable conditions, it might not be the end of the world for him. But obviously Ferrari and McLaren both think it's going to rain now for quite a long time, at least the next half an hour or 40 minutes. This race is far from over, and we definitely will have more pit stops.
And Häkkinen goes through, passes David Coulthard. Häkkinen's been lapping 2 seconds a lap faster than his teammate. He's got the bit between his teeth now. He's going for it. He's back into second position. David Coulthard there, the pole position man, goes down to third position. But Mika Häkkinen is some 12 seconds behind race leader Michael Schumacher on lap 21. Now this is going to be a replay of Rubens Barrichello coming up behind Pedro de la Rosa and Eddie Irvine to try and gain track position. I've said so far it's Verstappen, actually, I apologise. I said that Barrichello has been the disappointment of this race for me so far because he is down in 7th position. Well, he's moved up a place there, and the race order is Schumacher leading Häkkinen. As you see, Barrichello diving through inside Verstappen's Arrows. Now, the Arrows are in 8th position and 5th position. De La Rosa is in the top 6. And the top 6 are Michael Schumacher, 12.7 seconds, Mika Häkkinen, 4.8 seconds, David Coulthard, 9.3 seconds, Fisichella 4th, 1.3 seconds, 6.5 seconds, Rubens Barrichello, and then Eddie Irvine is still there, and Johnny Herbert is still in the top 10 for Jaguar. Now, Johnny Herbert is fighting to maintain his place in the Jaguar team next year. He really wants a good result. Well, of course, he always wants one. And last year he got one here because he won the race in appalling conditions. Look at the track, look at the distance between Schumacher that you've seen go through, and here is Mika Häkkinen. Comparative lap times, well, Häkkinen is lapping nearly 2 seconds faster at the present moment than Schumacher.
This lap's about the same, though, and remember, Michael had to pass the car on the previous lap, and he got well out of shape, as we saw for ourselves. So I think at the end of this lap, we'll see Michael has done a 30.4, and Mika a 30.5, so the gap remains around 12.9 seconds.
Well, interestingly, in terms of the Constructors' contest, which Ferrari lead McLaren by 7 points, both the Ferrari and the McLaren teams are on 10 points. That's a replay of Michael Schumacher going into the chicane and nearly, but not, losing it. Michael Schumacher is on a potential 10 World Championship points, and that would increase his lead over Mika Häkkinen. We're going for a break. And now with Barrichello into 5th position and on a potential 2 World Championship points, Ferrari have got potentially more points for the Constructors' Championship here in Europe than McLaren have. Barrichello is doing a superb job, and so is Verstappen, because Verstappen in the orange arrows pursued by the white Williams of Ralf Schumacher, who tries to go through on the inside and has to run wide as Verstappen retains his line. They're both closing up on Eddie Irvine and the Jaguar, who's holding that 7th position. It's quite conceivable that here, for the first time in the year 2000, well, first time ever, we're going to see a Jaguar get a Formula 1 World Championship point. Fingers crossed.
The problem is for the driver in front, unless you're in a very slow corner where the spray just curiously just fades down, and all of a sudden you can see what's going on around you and see something in your mirrors at any kind of speed over, let's say, 70, 80 miles an hour. You cannot see a thing behind you. So if a driver takes a stab at you unexpectedly, it's so easy for you just to drive in and take your normal line, especially in these conditions where you're really needing maximum concentration on the few meters of track ahead of you, rather than in the dry where you're looking down the road a little bit further.
Well, 16 seconds is the gap now between the man you're watching, Michael Schumacher. He has already won 3 Grand Prix this year. There is Mika Häkkinen, who's won 1. Schumacher, of course, did the hat-trick, got the treble, the first 3 races in Australia, Brazil, and the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. Then David Coulthard won at Silverstone in those appalling weather conditions for the people who were trying to get there, although the track was dry. Remember that. This is the first wet race we've had this year. And then Mika Häkkinen won in Spain. So it's 3 to Ferrari, 2 to McLaren so far. And the World Championship well and truly alive, but not this race for Mika Salo, because he is out of it from 13th position. His teammate Pedro Diniz, 17th now, has been lapped.
Something yellow in the gravel trap there as well, but I don't think it's a piece of Salo. I think it must be a piece of somebody else.
I think it's his nose. Oh, I was going to say it's his nose cone, but it's it's off something else.
Something else early in the race, but there's no way out of there in a Formula 1 car, that's for sure.
And coming towards us now, there is Fisichella, and behind him Rubens Barrichello. Now Barrichello, I remind you, has come up from 8th to 7th, from 7th to 6th, from 6th to 5th, and that's where he is now, and he's having a go at Giancarlo Fisichella's Benetton to move up into 4th position and get himself another World Championship point if he can stay there. Rubens Barrichello, of course, is no slouch in the wet. Remember how well he did at Monaco as Eddie Irvine battles with Jos Verstappen's arrows, and off they go. And that's Irvine and Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher out of the race. Ralf Schumacher out of the race as he was hit. Now he's quite calmly going on, having lost the wing at the back of the Williams. He's going to go on and go back to the Williams pit, and Eddie Irvine is out of the race as a result of that coming together.
Yes, they both lost the rear wing, but it's not like going in for a new front wing, 18, 19 seconds and a few bolts. The rear wing is fixed much more rigidly and in a more complicated way to the car. Ralf there, he probably should have seen this one coming a little bit more, but Eddie getting in deep. Verstappen, we've seen that this afternoon, he just simply will not yield to anybody, and Ralf spinning off in sympathy and losing his rear wing. And that contact, as we see later on, made the rear wing of the Jaguar of Irvine also fall off.
And it means that Johnny Herbert has moved up 2 places. He's only... Oh, and that is Jos Verstappen. No right front wheel.
No signs of any safety car, so maybe they're happy to recover that car under waved yellows. And with marshals on the track, you get waved yellows, so the drivers know there are not just machines or slow machines around or damaged cars, there are actually people around too. But at the moment, they're covering it under the waved yellows. Barrichello is through. Barrichello is past Fisichella, and now he will just home in on Coulthard, who's clearly nursing some kind of drama because he's 2 to 3 seconds off the pace of the leaders, and Barrichello will now just zoom into the back of Coulthard's McLaren.
And as I've said before, we can surmise that David Coulthard in 3rd place has got a problem. We don't know what it is. Ferrari will know, McLaren will know, of course, because they will be in radio contact with this as a replay as they come up to the chicane of Fisichella, seeing Barrichello dive up the inside of him, going through, taking 4th position, and now is on 3 World Championship points, and he's catching, as Martin pointed out, and Barrichello into the pits. Are you there, James? No.
Well, I am, Murray. No, I am here. I think this is probably more a fuel thing than anything else. They may be slightly unhappy about the tyres, but this is fuel to take him to the end of the race. This is Ross Brawn throwing the dice. Whatever happens now with the fuel situation and the race situation at the front, this is to get Barrichello up onto the podium.
Yeah, and he's not all that far from it, but now he's got to cope with the arrows of De La Rosa, who has moved ahead of him, but I presume De La Rosa will be stopping again. Johnny Herbert in the background is just outside the points in 7th position. The Nürburgring and this European Grand Prix certainly suit Romford-born Johnny Herbert, who won so brilliantly by calling the tyre changes right in foul weather conditions last year. So now we are with the sole Prost in the race, Jean Alesi. As Michael Schumacher comes into the pit lane. Michael Schumacher into the pit lane for his 2nd stop. Now he's 18 seconds ahead of Hakkinen, and James Allen is waiting for him.
Yeah, it's a good decision by Ross Brawn. It's absolutely chucking it down now. There's no chance of this track drying out before the end of the race. This is the fuel to take Schumacher through to the end of the race. Nice, calm, relaxed pit stop by the Ferrari team. I think they feel they've got the day won here, but there is, of course, still some way to go in this motor race. Anything could happen.
And I can tell you that Mika Hakkinen has now gone through into the lead. There he is, you see. There is the McLaren of Mika Hakkinen. Now look at the pit lane and wait for Michael Schumacher coming out at a steady 80 kilometres an hour, which is what he has to do as we wait to see whether David Coulthard comes through. No, that was Ricardo Zonta in the background in the VAR, and he is well down in 12th position.
That's Coulthard too far behind. What I'm finding slightly curious is that Rubens Barrichello only stopped for 7 seconds, and there's a half distance to go. Now you use significantly less fuel in the wet, maybe up to 7 or 8% less, but even so, I'm still surprised that Barrichello wasn't stationary longer. And Louise is in the pits with Eddie Irvine.
Eddie, tussle back there. Were you aware that the fact that you'd lost your rear wing?
No, I looked in the mirrors. I checked, the rear of the car. Everything looked okay, but obviously it wasn't. And then I obviously went down the next straight. So I'm surprised, because normally you would notice the rear being very, very light, which it wasn't. So strange.
Well, to give Mika Hakkinen track position when he makes his necessary 1 more stop, I think he needs over half a minute. So you see the end of Jenson Button's 2nd stop of the afternoon, and again full to the end of the race, of course. But I think Mika Hakkinen, whoops, Jenson, calm down a bit. I think Mika Hakkinen needs well over half a minute to make sure he's got track position on Michael Schumacher. And Michael Schumacher's just pegged the gap back a little bit. Hope Jensen's seen him coming, and he has.
Yeah, and you probably noticed that as Jensen Button exited the pit lane, the fuel filler flap was still up. That is because the new electronic regulations require the fuel flap to be up and the tail light to be flashing until second gear has been engaged.
Yes, and Mika Hakkinen is being held up, the race leader. Now he's let him through. That has cost Hakkinen quite a lot of very crucial time at this part of the race, where, as I said, he needs a window to make his pit stop and get out ahead of Michael Schumacher. He's had two very, very poor laps following Fisichella.
Yeah, it's lost him at least a couple of seconds. The lead of Mika Hakkinen that you're looking at has come down from 27 seconds to about 25 seconds. It's going to be a very close run, I think. Johnny Herbert, Eddie Irvine's teammate, coming into the pits from 8th position for his second stop of the day.
Consistent rain now, Murray, really. Not heavy rain. I don't expect a lot of standing water or aquaplaning, especially online. I think if they move offline, you see a little bit more of that, but it tracked the drains reasonably well. So it's just a question of staying in those wheel tracks. The cars, they lose about 5-6 miles an hour down the straights, as we see Lacey coming up the inside of Wurz, and that is actually for position, for 10th position. They're a lap down between them.
So, Fisichella there, 6th position. Villeneuve, 7th. Mika Hakkinen leading the race, but he's got to get past these two because he's being held up. Doesn't look much, but he is being held up as Villeneuve goes for Fisichella and throws up an enormous amount of spray in Mika Hakkinen's face, obscuring the Finn's visibility. Now, it's 25 seconds between Hakkinen and Villeneuve, or was when this lap started. I predict it's going to be a lot less than that at the end of this lap, because Schumacher is lapping in about 1 minute 30.9. Villeneuve is lapping in 1 minute 33.8.
Yes, McLaren's decision to start the cars fat with fuel looks very smart at the moment, but this is the stage of the race where Hakkinen needs to be capitalising on that, while the Ferraris effectively right now have a higher fuel load as the McLaren one is running down, and he's gone for the inside. Villeneuve's seen him, an ex-world champion himself, of course, Villeneuve, and smart enough to know what's going on around him. Coulthard massively off the pace. I don't know how he's keeping 3rd place. I think McLaren should get him in the pits, maybe change his tyre pressures or something, give him a bit more pressure if he's aquaplaning or whatever, if he is struggling on any standing water. Although there doesn't, as I said, there doesn't appear to be much to me, but Coulthard struggling for lap time. He really should come in and have another set of tyres.
And I was so wrong about Pedro de la Rosa replay of Hakkinen lapping Villeneuve. Now, I was so wrong about De La Rosa and Barrichello. I said Barrichello would rapidly regain the 4th place he had got by passing De La Rosa after the pit stops. He's not done so. De La Rosa from Spain in the Arrows is holding 4th position. And then he's not only that, but he's catching David Coulthard at the rate of about 1.5 seconds a lap. He's 27 seconds behind him at the present moment, and Rubens Barrichello is not closing the gap as Hakkinen goes through and passes and laps Fisichella. So Hakkinen, there's only 5 people on the same lap now, and that is lap 45. Hakkinen, Schumacher, and the gap is down to 22 seconds. It's bad news for Mika Hakkinen. The gap is down for 22 seconds, and so as a result of being held up, Hakkinen has lost nearly 3 seconds. Coulthard is 3rd, De La Rosa is 4th, Barrichello is in 5th position, and those are the only 5 on this lap.
Yes, he's lost 3 seconds, but that's like a net 6 or 7, because I think at this stage of the race, you would expect him, he was, until he caught that traffic, pulling away. Now that's clearly the McLaren mechanics in the pit lane. I'd be surprised if they're going to bring Mika in unless he just has to have fuel. Otherwise, they'd let him use that clear air. Does he come in the pit lane? Yes, he does. It is for Mika Hakkinen. So unfortunately for him, he clears the traffic. just as he has to come in for fuel. He's clearly got not enough fuel to go any further, so James is waiting for him.
Colossal frustration down here in the McLaren garage. They really are upset. That traffic has really messed up their race effort. But to be honest, he was going to need about 40 seconds anyway to get it back out ahead. Looking at what happened with Michael when he made his stop and how much time Hakkinen made up on him. So it's not a bad stop so far. That's the fuel to the end of the race. Slow getaway, trying to find his gear.
Schumacher through, James. I'm sorry. Schumacher has passed Mika Hakkinen into the pit lane. Here is Michael Schumacher regaining the lead. There on the left is Mika Hakkinen back again into second position. So that held-up period really did cost Mika Hakkinen a lot of time.
Well, it's a new adventure now for Hakkinen. How do these tyres feel now? A little bit of extra fuel, but we know both cars must have identical fuel levels, give or take a kilo or two, to get to the end of the motor race, as Coulthard comes in too from a distant third place. So Coulthard in for his second stop, and I expect now Michael Schumacher to pull away another second or two in these first two laps before then we see which one of them, if Hakkinen can close that gap down. A decent stop there from Coulthard. That was critical. Can he get back out ahead of Della Rosa and Barrichello?
Well, here's Della Rosa and Barrichello. Here they're coming on the right. There is David Coulthard on the left, and Della Rosa goes through, and Barrichello goes through. So David Coulthard has lost 2 places. He's gone down from 3rd to 5th. Magnificent Pedro Della Rosa in the orange arrows. Here he is coming towards us. He's up into a podium position. Well, he's got a World Championship point in the past. Last year he got one, but the possibility of him finishing on the podium in 3rd position is a really exciting one. Something that Formula One really needs. But there are still 20 laps to go. Welcome back to this superb scrap for 3rd place. We're riding with Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari. He's 4th, and ahead of us in that ball of spray, it's Spaniard Pedro Della Rosa in the arrows. And he's staying ahead of the Ferrari. But how much longer is he going to be able to do so? Because there's no doubt that he's going to have to come into the pits, and it looks as though this is the time and he's going to have to do it. Yes, into the pits comes Della Rosa. Barrichello goes 3rd.
Yes, critical moment there, because Della Rosa had to slow down and take to the pit lane. Would have been so easy for Barrichello to have been trying to go up the inside. He wasn't, fortunately. Della Rosa a good run, but it was absolutely inevitable he would have to make this second stop, as his first one was so early in the race. It's going to put him down the order, but still a great chance today of some World Championship points for the Arrows team.
So on goes David Coulthard, and it's a brilliant drive, whatever happens, for Pedro Della Rosa and for Arrows. They fought so hard to get this car right, and it is.
Yeah, very tardy away though. Della Rosa not pulling away quickly at all. I think he was somewhat surprised. If you notice, they didn't lift the car, they didn't change the tyres. Smart move, just to splash and dash. Wet tyres, they're not going to be worn out. And Della Rosa just was not ready to go and lost himself 2 or 3 seconds as he now gets lapped by race leader Michael Schumacher.
Now that's the Ferrari pit crew coming out.
Now I wonder if they short-filled Barrichello's car because 7 seconds in my view was not enough. And what is that going on? That's Denitz taking Zonta, who's just made a pit stop for 10th place. But I'm wondering why Ferrari can really, I think, we know Michael took 11.8 seconds of fuel. I think yes, it's Barrichello, look, coming in. I was right about that. I just didn't think they put enough fuel in his car. And this plays back into Coulthard's hands, but he doesn't appear to have any speed to do anything about it.
Well, I'm just watching the road as you're watching Barrichello coming into the pit lane to see whether David Coulthard comes through and retakes that 3rd position. He was 19 seconds behind the Ferrari. It's going to be mighty close, but there's only just a little fuel gone in, and Barrichello exits the pit, and Coulthard has yet to go through. There he is! Watch it, watch the exit. Barrichello is going to come out, and I think David Coulthard is going to get ahead of him, and he's done so. There he is, David Coulthard, third position. So it is Ferrari leading Schumacher, McLaren second Hakkinen, McLaren third Coulthard, Ferrari fourth Barrichello, Fisichella is fifth, and Pedro de la Rosa is still sixth ahead of Johnny Herbert.
I think Barrichello will be asking some serious questions at the end of this race to understand what on earth they were doing. Why didn't they put a dozen seconds of fuel in his car like they did Michael Schumacher at the same point of the race? Very bizarre. Maybe they had a refueling rig problem or something, but clearly they just didn't get enough fuel in that car at that crucial spot.
Oh, it's Fisichella going through now. He's in fifth position, and now Hakkinen goes through and laps again the Sauber of Pedro Diniz. So Giancarlo Fisichella has been lapped. Here is Mika Hakkinen storming up behind him on the 58th lap out of 67.
This has been a terrible lap for Mika Hakkinen. He's lost over 2 seconds passing passing the Sauber on this lap to Michael Schumacher. And this is why, look, you have to hover. You can't just drill it in there just in case he turns in on you. You've got to be more positive if you're letting somebody through and give them more than a car and a half to go at. And Michael has now lapped Barrichello. That's not going to help Barrichello's cause much unless Michael can also lap Coulthard and hold him up in some way, which is he's more than capable of doing and understanding. But he's only 10 seconds ahead of Mika Hakkinen, so he hasn't got that much of a comfort zone.
And Michael Schumacher passes Wurtz's Benetton, so he's passing these people, which Hakkinen behind him has then got to pass. So, lap 63, just 4 laps to go at the end of this one. Michael Schumacher keeping it on the field, it's on the tarmac, in spite of these appalling mist clouds in front of him, and Jenson Button now. Is he going to turn across? Yes, he does. Michael Schumacher backs off very sensibly, and Button holds the Ferrari back. And look at Hakkinen. So, and Coulthard in the McLaren, it's mighty close. And there's only 4 laps to go, and there is just 2 people on the same lap at the present moment. Michael Schumacher and his Finnish rival Mika Hakkinen in second place.
And Jenson Button lost out badly there. He's lost a place to Wurtz, so he goes down into 9th. But look at Barrichello trying to get up the inside of Coulthard. They're both being held up by the scrap that's going on. A further lap. They're lapping. They're already a lap down themselves. The other people getting in the way are 2 laps down, but Coulthard got a reasonable run out of the corner. Where is Barrichello in that spray? Still behind him, look.
Yeah, remember Spain. Remember the way that Rubens Barrichello nipped past the Schumacher brothers, but then he had Michael helping him by holding Ralph out, and there the Ferrari flying past. That's Michael Schumacher in the lead, flying past Johnny Herbert to lap the Jaguar in 7th position. So, keep this order in your mind. Schumacher leading, Hakkinen second, Coulthard third, Rubens Barrichello right behind him. Fisichella is 5th, Herbert is 7th, and they're virtually together on the track itself.
Even the camera can't see hardly now, look, so the visors do get penetrated with water. You start peering through little holes in the end, trying to just pick out the curbs and braking point. Michael, but dangerously close to the edge of the track again.
But the vital thing is that Michael Schumacher has now cleared the people he was lapping and has got an open track in front of him. He can see where he is going. He's on his 64th lap. He's got 3 laps to go at the end of this to make it the 4th Ferrari win of the year 2000, as Alexander Wurz comes up behind Johnny Herbert's Jaguar and has a go. Wurz trying to improve his reputation this year.
Yes, and Coulthard slow out of the Vidal. They're going to touch surely.
Oh, off they go. That's tragic for Johnny Herbert, but he's kept it on the island. Brilliant. Now has he got the engine running? But that's cost Wurz his place. But it may be that... and Jenson Button, now where is he? Well, there is David Coulthard with Barrichello right behind him. They are 3rd and 4th. But we need to look back down the field a bit. Wurz is out of the race.
Button is out of the race. I can see on the computer car 10 has stopped, so Jenson Button is out of this race. And look, there is the dice for 3rd place as they go over the line. So Barrichello can't find a way through the spray. He didn't find a way up the inside into Vidal. and Coulthard has to somehow hang on for one more lap. Crucial for David, while he's struggling with his injuries or whatever he's got to carry, he needs to maximise his points in this race. He cannot afford to yield that place to Rubens Barrichello.
Well, David's had a first, he's had 3 thirds, one of which was disallowed. He's had a third, he's driven magnificently this season. He's third in the World Championship. If he can stay ahead of Rubens Barrichello on this final lap, it's going to help him. On this last lap but one, it's going to help him as the Ferrari technicians look anxiously at their monitors, and Michael Schumacher is on his 66th and last lap but one. That was the Ferrari. Now the next car up will be Mika Häkkinen's McLaren. There it is, and David Coulthard, and behind him is Rubens Barrichello. And Michael Schumacher comes out of turn 8 with the German horns, the air horns blowing. The flags are waving. Schumi is their hero, and you can see Ferrari flags all round the track. A magnificent, if he gets there, and he hasn't got far to go, the Ferrari mechanics already crowding the pit lane. And Michael Schumacher is coming in to win his 4th race of the year, to extend his World Championship lead over Mika Häkkinen by a further 4 points, from 14 points to 18 points. Schumacher wins in Germany.
And Coulthard, I think, is going to maintain the third. He took a second somewhere out of Barrichello, and there's Coulthard third, Barrichello 4th, and curiously second place man coming over the line now, nearly a lap ahead. So Häkkinen, a slightly disconsolate cruise over the line. Great drive from Michael Schumacher.
Well, whenever it rains, he seems to be the man. Michael Schumacher strikes back. His 3rd European Grand Prix victory keeps him in line for a 3rd world title.
Michael, you seem very popular here. Did you do something special today, do you think?
Oh, it looks like, yeah. I mean, I'm honestly not surprised I'm popular here.
It was an incredible pass you put on Häkkinen. Tell us about it.
It was nice. I don't have very often the opportunity. I was a little bit concerned because I had the harder tyre, that in this condition, which was very slippery, I would lose ground, but actually I made up ground.
Seemed to give you an awful lot of pleasure this win today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, certainly did.
Well, it started raining a little bit more in the back corners, and it gave the opportunity to Michael to close up. And I feel that way he probably had a little bit better car in the rain than I had.
Tell me about the last few laps, your battle with Barrichello.
You know, I wasn't battling with Rubens because I was having to concentrate so hard to keep my car on the circuit, that because it was very nervous in the rear, and it would either be below the car or, you know, probably in the gravel. So I just was really concentrating to keep my car on the track, and if someone was quicker, they were going to overtake me. There was very little I could do to defend that. So I knew he was catching me, and obviously I saw him behind me at the end, but I just had to concentrate on my car.
At the end of the race, there was no visibility at all, and I tell you, it was somebody up there that was holding me on the track, because I was trying everything I could to overtake David. And unfortunately, I had no visibility, but I had a better car. I had, better everything to overtake. But unfortunately, I didn't have the visibility.
Well done, Pedro. Good day for the team.
I'm very pleased, very happy for the Orange Arrows team. I think we deserved it. The team has worked so hard during the winter, and a lot of non-finishes at the beginning with, but now it's good for the guys. They've done a great job. If I was in clear air, I think I possibly could have done some good times. The car felt very good, and when I did have some clear air, I was able to catch people. But when you're 100 metres behind them, it's so difficult with the spray. Something I've got to get used to, and I've learned quite a lot in this race.
I don't think I would have finished in the points anyway. I think I would have stayed 7th, and that's always the worst place to be. So in some ways, not finishing is just as bad as 7th anyway. But it's frustrating. It was did a good choice of tyres, but as I said before, I needed 2 of those rainstorms to help me out.
There we are then. It's an 18-point lead now for Michael Schumacher. Häkkinen's 4 points ahead of teammate Coulthard. Barrichello moving up to 16. The younger Schumacher unchanged. A couple of points, though, taking Fisichella into double figures. And in the constructors, Ferrari's leads up to 10 points. No improvement for Williams or Jordan, and their miserable day is compounded by being overtaken by Benetton. Right, let's have a word with Tony Jardine. First of all, pay tribute to the rain master, Michael Schumacher, once again.
I put it on a level with some of the great drives by the greats like Ayrton Senna. You know, when he won his first race in Portugal in '84, I put it on a par with some of Schumacher's great drives, like at Monte Carlo in '97. You remember standing on that boat and getting soaked and watching him just master the conditions. And here you've had this rain, the mist, the gloom, and he's brought joy to 120,000 spectators, never mind the Ferrari fans around the world.
And he obviously felt it was a very significant day for him, judging by the way he celebrated on that podium, Tony.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you know, even an hour or so after the race, he was out there waving to his fans and the klaxons have been going and so on. And just a tremendous performance. It means so much to him because he missed both German races last year due to breaking his leg at Silverstone.
He's called it one of the best days of his life. Not so David Coulthard, though, left pretty dramatically at the start after kicking off on pole as well.
Yeah, I mean, the start was tremendous, really, but it was 2 years since he'd had pole. And just look at the start, the rocket ship from Mika Hakkinen. He got the revs just right, the timing just right. He shocked both Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard, but Schumacher regains his confidence there to get into second place, and somehow Coulthard gets back into third. That was truly, he got punted off there by Fisichella. He got a rude bang up the rear of his car. That put him out. Look at it again. Incredible traction. Now the temperatures are so low, which is why some of the drivers, i.e. the McLaren guys, went on the super soft tyres to try and get some grip. And Hakkinen got grip off that line.
We're all wondering when the Jaguar are going to get their first point, aren't we? And Eddie Irvine got tangled up with Ralf Schumacher and Jos Verstappen, and that was him done for.
Well, he'd been dicing with Verstappen. He'd been ahead of him, and he was having another go for sixth place here. And there was a touch there with Verstappen. And as he gyrated, poor Ralf Schumacher was behind him, had nowhere to go, hit the back of the Jaguar. You see it again. But the wing has come off, not just Ralf Schumacher's car, but Eddie Irvine's Jaguar. He said the rear end was light anyway. Off he goes, out he goes as well. And that was unfortunate, but it showed you how treacherous the conditions were.
There was a stop for Mika Hakkinen, lap 44, I think it was, and then we realised that, well, he was never going to catch Michael Schumacher.
But again, it could have paid off because McLaren had a good strategy. They got the cars heavier with fuel for that first run. He'd stayed out longer. He'd gone into the lead, but he needed to build up more time than he got before that pit stop. Schumacher, you saw going past there again, back into the lead.
Johnny Herbert running his 150th Grand Prix. Again, he seemed to be in line for a point, possibly for Jaguar, and then along came the big Austrian who wears different coloured boots, Alexander Verse,
yeah.
and put the boot in.
Well, and there it is, and these are two men that are under the microscope to try and hold their positions if they can for next year. Here you see it again. I think the door was wide open, but there's only a certain line. You're going wide around there. Johnny Herbert looking for grip. He won here last year by watching the clouds, but Wirtz just going where he shouldn't have gone.
This was an absolutely compelling Grand Prix, wasn't it, Tony? Excitement right through to the end with David Coulthard in pain, but holding off Rubens Barrichello.
Yeah, we've talked about it. You know, those of us that have broken ribs, it takes a long time for them to heal. He had a very light rear end of the car, but he was defending his position. He knew he had to hang on here for third place on that podium. In the meantime, Barrichello's thinking, I've got to get up on that podium because otherwise Ferrari are going to give me a lot of stick, but he didn't make it.
You're not going to tell any of the 100,000 plus Germans here that this is not going to be Michael Schumacher's year, are you?
No, I daren't, but it is not over yet. I mean, there is still a long way to go. 18 points now between Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher, but things happen in Formula 1. We've seen it year after year after year. We've got to wait and see what happens at Monte Carlo next.
Tony, thanks very much indeed. And here's your complete European Grand Prix rundown. Michael Schumacher, an ecstatic winner, carrying, by the way, a lucky hairbrush given to him by his young daughter. Hakkinen, a subdued runner-up. Coulthard third, driving through the pain barrier and struggling for balance. Still holding off Barrichello. Fisichella, a scorer for Benetton. High praise for the Spaniard De La Rosa, 6 for Arrows. 2 laps adrift. Deniz, Mazzacani and Alesi. Button classified 10th, 5 laps behind. Herbert and Wirtz still classified 11th and 12th after that crash. Zonta spun off. Genet's electrics failed, as did Villeneuve's engine. Verstappen, Ralf Schumacher and Irvine all involved in that accident. Salo, another spinner. And the unlucky Jordans, Frenson's engine failing, Trulli pushed off in the first lap. Heidfeld, you'll remember, ruled out by that underweight Prost. Next, one of the great Grand Prix weekends of the year, the Monaco Grand Prix. Qualifying live on the Saturday at 11:30 in the morning. Our build-up to the race starting 12:15 on the Sunday. Highlights around about the same time, 11:45. Monaco, of course, the base for many of the Grand Prix drivers. There is no place like home. If you don't believe me, ask Michael Schumacher. Good night.
Beautiful drive by Michael Schumacher. Whoa! Schumacher wins in Germany.